Welcome to another episode of Should You Take That Case with your host, Lisa Wade, your friendly neighborhood legal nurse consultant, owner of Wade Nurse Consultants, and creator of our private LinkedIn community, the Attorney Medical Record Resource Group. That is where we get all of our stellar attorney guests. The goal of our show is to be a resource for legal professionals who pursue medical cases by sharing their experience and insights as defense or as plaintiff attorneys. You can catch prior episodes at www.wadenurseconsultants.com/blog, on LinkedIn and on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. Now here's the host of Should You Take That Case, Lisa Wade.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. It is another Medical Record Monday. That's what I call them. And welcome to a new episode of Should You Take That Case? And it is me, your host, Lisa Wade, legal nurse consultant, medical record expert, and owner of Wade Nurse Consultants. Think of us when you have those tons and tons of medical records that you need translated into normal human language, easily understood by judges and juries. And visit us at wadenurseconsultants.com to learn more about us. Well, I am also the creator of a little group inside of LinkedIn called the Attorney Medical Record Resource Group. And that's where I get all of my wonderful attorney guests. They are all part of that group. And we use this as an opportunity to get to know one another. And we are going to do that with a repeat guest today, Victoria Schall. She's going to tell us all about what's been happening with her since her last visit on the show. But first, before we get Victoria out here, we are going to scoot over to the comment section and see if anybody's visiting us live today. If you are out there and you're watching us, if you're an attorney, put an A into that chat so we can see you and say hello. Put a P if you're a paralegal. Put a W if you are a part of Women-Owned Law. That is a wonderful group that I am a part of. It is a groundbreaking group created to connect and advance women legal entrepreneurs and help and support female lawyers in running in the pursuit of the business of law. So sorry about that, Women-Owned Law. I could have done that a little slicker, but if you're out there and you're watching us, you're part of that group, put a W in the chat so we can see you and say hello. And I encourage anybody out there to learn more about Women-Owned Law. Visit us at womenownedlaw.org. There are much more articulate on the website than I have been today, but we hope to see you there, womenownedlaw.org. And well, let's move on. Let me thank you all for taking precious time out of your very busy days to be with us so we can have our repeat visit with Victoria Schall. And she's going to introduce herself to you. I'm going to bring her out right now. Ta-da! Hello, Victoria.
Hey, Lisa, how you doing?
Good. Welcome back. Thanks.
I thought you were pretty slick with that. I thought.
I don't know how slick I am, but I'm doing my best.
All right. It was close.
Now, tell the folks, introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us what you do, where you do it, and maybe why you do it. Tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, so I can't remember exactly what we talked about the last time, but I'm sure it probably had a little bit to do with that. So I don't want to go too much into it. But what I will say is that the last time we spoke, that I was working at another firm, and now as of July 1st, I started my own firm. I do, yay! Yay! So speaking about women knowing law, yeah, I own my own firm and I do all nursing home abuse and neglect litigation. So I pursue claims against facilities, nursing homes, assisted livings, group homes, you name it, for any sort of abuse and neglect that comes into injuries for individuals in those facilities. And my background, just to give you the quick run through of it. I actually started out volunteering in facilities, and I always tell the story about how I have a cute face and a loud mouth, so I got kicked out of a lot of them before really going to do this. So I really went to law school to do nursing home abuse work. When I was in law school, I worked for an organization called NCNR, the National Citizens Coalition for Nursing Home Reform. They work in public policy, having to deal with the federal regulations that govern nursing homes, and trying to keep them in place. And I worked at Legal Services as an elder law staff attorney of Northern Virginia for about 3 years. And then I moved up to New Jersey in 2010 in order to start litigating and trying nursing home cases across the state. So I've been doing nursing home litigation work for about 13 years, but have had my hand in the long-term care industry for probably over 20 plus years in various forms. So, and all of that really, really helps me, particularly as you and I have talked about in looking at records, right? Mm-hmm. One of the main things that all of my cases, it really, families call, and it's great that they can tell me their version of what they went through. But at the end of the day, I have to be able to get those medical records in order to be able to get, in my state, something called an Affidavit of Merit. And that's where you have an expert that says that there is enough based on their review of the medical records to be able to file a complaint in your state. And so where that comes in super handy is, that I try to cut down on my costs of some of my experts to get those affidavits of merit by knowing how to read records myself. And doing that. So you and I know we've talked about it, and it's tough because I truly do believe it, that if you're not familiar with looking at medical records and you're doing this type of work, you got to hire Lisa, you got to, or figure it out yourself. But it's going to take a long time for you to figure it out yourself. But you got to find somebody that in the meantime can help teach you how to be able to do that. And there's a lot, Lisa's fantastic at it. So,
well, thank you.
It's kind of the general gist, but it's such a crucial part, right? Because there's companies overseas that you can send records to, and they'll do records breakdowns for you. But frankly, they don't know your case. They don't understand your case. They're literally just going through records and saying, this is what's on this page. This is what's on that page. What you really want and need is somebody that can look at those records and say, yeah, this is on this page, but this is why this is so messed up. Because if you go to this page, it doesn't make sense at all, or there's fraudulent alteration of the records, or, the sniff test, the fish smell sniff test of it doesn't smell right. And you need somebody that can look at you and say, this is why this is not fitting right, or this is why there's certain issues. And for me, it's a cost saving mechanism as well. When I then take that information to my expert, and I can say, look, here's the pages that I looked at. I want you to look at the records, but here are the pages that you need to pay really close attention to, because this is what I've seen. Let's reconvene now in what I've seen and what you see. So it can really be helpful on a host of different levels.
Well, you're a medical record expert yourself, so
all of that.
All I am concerned about is that it's getting done, it's getting reviewed correctly, whether it's me that does it or that you're doing it. As long as it's getting done correctly and tethering, you listen to your client's stories, tethering what is in that story, that narrative of what happened, and tethering that back to where those pertinent things inside the record connect to what actually happened. So I like that.
Right. And it tells that story, right? I've my records, I've tried cases where you turn around and you say, this is the chart. This person's no longer here. This person's no longer with us. This chart tells the story of what you felt was going on with this person, but here's what was really going on with this person, right? And so it can be utilized, the records can even be utilized as a tool during trial to say, like, you had this much respect enough for somebody to turn around and change what happened to this person because you don't want to take accountability for them. Right. Or you just didn't care enough to put that in there. Issues with falls, issues with pressure ulcers, issues with asphyxiation where somebody is eating food that they shouldn't be eating. And, there's just so much information that never makes it into that documentation that's so crucial to have, and that really helps to tell that story. So, definitely you gotta get them, and you gotta get somebody that knows. If you don't know how to do it, you gotta get somebody that does know how to review them to be able to pull and parse out that stuff of what's there, what's not there, what should be there. Right.
All right. Excellent. Well, they should hire one of us.
Well, it's funny. So, I do. So I started my own firm. I got to a point for myself, and I know that one of the things that in looking at one of the topics that you were, hey, maybe we'll touch upon this in this session, was things that have happened since we last spoke. In your personal life or your professional life.
Yeah.
Well, in my professional life, I will say this, I think personally and professionally, I went through a change with, my mother passed away in April, and it was a very difficult and challenging time in her own care. And it was a true masterclass in what I do professionally. And so it really kind of made me sit down and say, if I don't do this and do it now, when am I ever going to do it? I'm 43 years old. I have a family, but we're at a point that we're pretty stable in what we've got and where we're going and what we're looking at. And, where else are we going with it? And is this enough for me? And so at that point, it kind of pivoted to then the question of, you hear this all the time out there. You hear, know your worth, right? Know your worth. And I think that's great, but I think it's actually more important to know your financial worth, right? What am I financially worth to you? And what am I financially worth to myself? What can I do? What am I doing in this profession that are you really paying me for what I can do? Or is it worth potentially having that risk of doing it for myself and making that and then some? Right.
Okay.
And so if, there were a few things that went on that really just kind of made me start to think about that. And I've been practicing since 2007, 2008 in various states. I've worked at small firms, large firms, mid-sized firms, and you start to look at that, and you got to really sit down and say, what am I financially worth, and am I able to give that to myself? And would I ever be able to live with it later on if I didn't give myself that chance and that opportunity, if I'm worth more than what I'm getting paid? If I believe that I'm worth more than what I'm getting paid, and give yourself that chance to do it. And I think it's, obviously I'm only been in business for, 3 months, so we're still alive. But it's being willing and able to take that risk. And I think it can be super scary. And I think most people, it's beyond scary, that they don't want to try doing it. But to me, it's something that I've always had kind of the entrepreneurial spirit. And I know what I'm doing. I've been doing it long enough. And so I think it's worth that risk. And I can, go, later on in life, I can say, what, I gave it my all, and I did what I thought was best for me and my family.
Oh, definitely. Well, once again, my condolences on the passing of your mother.
Thank you.
And I definitely understand that. I've been through the same thing, so I can see how that can make a change in your perspective of what you're going to do next. And it looks like you have just jumped right in.
We're in.
Oh,
we're in, and I think this is kind of where you at that point in time then too, it then causes you to also look at, okay, so here's my cases, here's what I'm doing, where do I see myself? You got to then sit back again and reevaluate your 3-year plan, your 5-year plan. Like, what are you trying to do in the future? And one of the things that I realized that I bring to the table is, I have this whole skill set in a very niche kind of area, right? And there's other people out there that are looking for that. So one of the things in addition to handling my own cases, is that I've made myself available to consult on other people's nursing home cases, and to help provide them, my expertise in reviewing records and and giving my thoughts from a case handling position as well as a trial position. And I think that's really important, is realizing that reviewing medical records is actually a skill. It's truly a skill. And not everybody has it or is willing necessarily to even learn it. So, it's something that I definitely bring to the table. So I've added that as a side component to helping people in other nursing home cases and in handling their own cases. So that's out there too.
Oh boy, you have that entrepreneurial spirit for sure. There's nothing like looking for a new stream of revenue,
Right.
using the skills and talents that you already possess.
Right.
So, yay! Well, good.
Right.
Good luck. Good luck on that journey. And
Thank you.
Anybody that gets you to assist with their cases. What's the worst thing that can happen? You have an expert that is laser focused and that can get a hold of what that case is about, what to do about it, and where to go next, all in a flash of an eye, or a flash of an eye, flash of a pan. I've lost all of my
Right.
Okay, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Quick, fast, and in a hurry, as my father would say.
There you go. There you
There
go.
we go. That's it.
I like
Thank
it.
you. Thank you, Dad. All right, now, tell us, I know you've told us a lot about what, wait a minute, tell us where you're practicing first. I don't think
I'm
we
sorry.
told them that, and the
Yeah.
name of your new firm.
Where are you? So I practice mainly in New Jersey, but I also have cases in the Philadelphia area and the Philadelphia region. I'm licensed in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and the District of Columbia. So kind of the 95 bandit with the missing Delaware and Maryland. But I have a number of friends too in the Virginia, DC area as well, and have discussions about cases all the time too. So.
And the name of your newly formed law firm?
Schall At Law LLC.
There you go. That's good. Now,
Yeah.
Everybody go out there, visit her, and get her, because she is a good expert to have on those nursing home cases. And tell us, have any cases come up recently? Well, I know you've only been doing this for 3 months, but is there anything that's come up that maybe you didn't pursue, that you found out maybe it's not a case, you had to give some disappointing news to anybody, or
Oh my God,
have you
Lisa.
taken all of those cases?
No, absolutely not. I will tell you, because I've been doing this for 13 years in New Jersey, and it's really just, I took my book of business with me when I left, and I was able to continue forward with my cases. But look, you have to look at the cases in a specific kind of way, right? So with nursing home cases, it's not like a car accident case, and a lot of times it's not even like a medical malpractice case, even though that's what it's categorized as.
Mm-hmm.
When you're looking at it, you're not really, most of my residents that are in the facility have passed away. And so, it makes it challenging sometimes when you have a resident who calls you either from the facility or from, or that has, whatever happened to them, they've been able to move past that, whatever injury they sustained, they've been able to move forward from that. Those are some challenging things. What do I look for when I'm looking for a case? I'll start there. And then I can tell you about some reasons why I may have turned some cases down. So, when I'm looking at a nursing home case, you need to make sure that you've got three main things, right? So the first thing is you got to have a good family, right? So people that were there, people that visited, people that cared about their loved one, right? Then you got to have a bad facility, right? And there's a lot of factors that go into that. But I will tell you, oftentimes people call me up and ask for, what is a good facility, right? And I can tell them, generally some ideas of what to look for. But it makes it really tough because bad things can happen at good places too, right? And I don't necessarily turn a case down because of that. But at the same time, if it's an incident situation and it's a good place, there's certain things that come to light as you're looking at potentially having to try that case, right? So bad facility, you're looking at staffing, you're looking at state and federal investigations, so annual and complaint surveys of that facility. And then honestly, with so many facilities, it's a lot of repeat offenders. So I have my list in my head of all of the places that I've sued over the last 13 years. And it's kind of interesting because you end up with rotating administrators, rotating directors of nursing. They pop up. They may be at one place in 1 year, and then 2 years down the road, they're in a different facility. So one of the things with the Department of Health that you can look at is you can go to their website, bring up a facility, and see who the administrator is. And I'm not kidding you. Sometimes you look at it and you're like, oh, I had that guy on this case. Like he just moved to another facility, right? You end up with that a lot. And then, so good family, bad facility, and then you have to have a bad injury, right? And it makes it difficult sometimes because you have maybe a smaller injury or something that valuation wise may be very difficult to take because it's not going to overcome what you're going to have to spend on that case, right? So then you start to have to try to factor in, the other two factors, right? And then you got to look at, the facility itself, insurance coverage, how much do they have? Do they have it? Because in New Jersey, they're not required to have, there's no mandatory liability insurance for nursing homes, assisted livings, group homes. So you may be dealing with a situation where there's no insurance and you're trying to pull money out of someone's pocket, right? So you gotta look at that, evaluation from that perspective too. Additionally, I'll put this as like a side note, number 4, is you also have to pay attention to liens, right? And it's a trial lawyer's situation where you handle cases that, so, okay, anytime you have Medicare and or Medicaid, they're entitled to or a federally based, fully self-funded health insurance company called ERISA, through an ERISA plan. They're entitled to what's called a right of reimbursement for any money that they paid out as a result of the injury. Okay. So in my nursing home cases, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to have a Medicare and or a Medicaid lien, right? So I may have both, or one and not the other. But that being said, what's also tricky is in New Jersey, and I know in other states too, I don't know if every state has it, but Medicaid is entitled to what's called a super estate lien. So they're entitled to claim back every dollar that was paid out over that person's lifetime past a certain age, right? So when you have a resident that's in a long-term care facility that's has been in long-term care for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, and then you're looking at that case, you're going to have a pretty extensive Medicaid estate lien. Also you got to look at how long they've been on it in the context of, if they've been on it a short period of time, then, the Medicaid estate lien might be low, but it's still collectible. And then you got to look at the valuation of your case, because in New Jersey right now, they're still hammering, they're at how do I phrase this? They have taken a position where they will claim every dollar that is available if a dollar is to be had. If the settlement is of a certain amount and it qualifies for that money to still be there. So, you got to think about not just, hey, there's this injury and from this person that happened in a nursing home, and everybody hates nursing homes, which, by the way, that's so far from the truth. In trials that I've had, I can't tell you how many jurors, during New Jersey's quote unquote voir dire, because we don't have actual voir dire. It's a list of set questions, and then you petition the court in order to ask any additional questions, right? So in the questions, one of the questions is generally, do you have any issues with nursing homes? And I can't tell you how many people would sit there and say, look, yeah, I have my grandmother went to a facility, she had rehab, she came out, she was fine. So, not everybody's like, oh, they're the scum of the earth. So you gotta,
Goodness.
you got to think about all of these things, right? About what you're looking at in your facilities and what you're looking at from a trial perspective, not just from, hey, we have a nursing home where this person had an injury and this is, it sounds horrible. Well, yeah, it sounds horrible, but you got to put it in context of all of those things. So, I've had cases that I've had to not take for various reasons. And one of those, I would say that I've gotten more cautious on taking is where you have not necessarily a nursing home, but you have a hospital and let's say a step down facility, and the person develops a pressure ulcer at the hospital, and then they end up going to the specialty hospital, right? And then the person continues to receive treatment coming out and receives years worth of treatment, right? Because at that point in time, I know my liens are going to be over the top, right? It's going to be a lot. And I have to figure out whether it's going to be worth the valuation, whether it's going to be worth it for the client for that valuation of the case and what they're going to see at the end of the day. Knowing that there's these potential liens that are massive, and sometimes they'll take reductions, but they don't take reductions enough that you're going to see what you really wanted to see at the end of the day of it. And that can be a really difficult conversation to have, because you're trying to explain, even though there may be liability, even though you may have causation, the valuation of this may not be worth it for you to go through, 4 to 6 years of litigation to turn around and see, a particular sum of money. And so those have been some of my more challenging discussions that I've had when I'm talking to potential clients in that type of a scenario.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like there are a lot of intricacies inside of these cases. And I can see why somebody would come to you, since that's what you've been laser focused on for years, to give them a little help, a little boost in their nursing home cases. I think you're the one.
Well, I'll tell you too. I mean, here's the thing too, is oftentimes people will, if it turns out to not be a case that I can take, I have the person or the attorney that referred it to me will say, oh, I'm sorry for wasting your time. And I'm like, that's never a waste of my time. Because some of the other things I do when I talk to people is, particularly if a resident is still with us, I try to coach them and help them to understand, here's where you are, here's what you need to look at, in the future for somebody, particularly if they're planning on coming home. So I try to work with a number of estate planning attorneys, a number of people within the community, to give people resources that they can try to get somebody back into a safe environment, or back into an environment with their family, or within their choices of what they want and what is feasible to be done. So I have a lot of conversations with families about those types of choices and decisions in moving forward once something has happened. So it's never a waste to have somebody call. Based on all of my other background, it's certainly I love trying to help people out in any way I can, even if I can't take the case. If I can help them to figure out, what might be the best scenario for that person in the future and their family in the future, I see that as a win.
Oh, definitely. Well, that reminds me of also something else new that you have going on since the last time we talked. You have a show. Tell
Yeah.
everybody about that. You've got your own show.
I don't remember if I had it at that time or not, but yeah. So I have a television series on a network called RVN TV. So it's RVN TV. And if you want to find it, the title of it is Advocating for the Aging. And, you and I were talking about, how did you get this? Right. And so, I'll tell you a little bit about that. It was a situation where another attorney in the area has a show, and she does a wonderful job at interviewing other attorneys within the state that handle varying types of legal issues. And even if they handle something similar to somebody that's been interviewed before, she interviews them so that you understand different varying perspectives on how different attorneys handle cases. And I think it's really been helpful to improve, hopefully improve the image of attorneys and in doing the work that we do. So she had asked me to be on the show. I came on her show, and after I spoke about the type of work that I do, they asked me if I would be interested in my own show, knowing that really in the half-hour interview that I had, I really just scratched the mere surface of what's really going on in the long-term care industry and with abuse and neglect, but not only just that, but everything within the aging community. So I named the segment. It's called Advocating for the Aging. And I've had a number of guests on the show that just really great people that are experts in their own right. People that I've had the New Jersey Long-Term Care Ombudsman on. I've had estate planning attorneys talking about how they handle estate planning work, because, I will tell you, a number of estate planning attorneys have different perspectives on the type of work that they do and the type of services they provide and what they do and why they do it that way. So I've had a number of those attorneys on. I've had people in public policy and nursing home reform nationally. I've had people that educate about nursing homes, assisted livings, and really kind of where the money goes, right? I think there's a number, you probably hear it, particularly now, because there's been a number of proposals about minimum staffing levels, and then the money attached to that, and the industry outcry of needing more money from Medicare, and then the other side of that coin saying, well, where has the money been going? And wanting an accounting of where that money goes. And so I've had people on that can discuss those types of issues from both sides. I've had nursing home administrators. I have upcoming in the next set of series, I have directors of nursing or former directors of nursing. I've had people in home healthcare, people in that help people to set up home healthcare, group homes, disability services, you name it. So that's the show that I do. And really, I just interview people and have people talk about what they do, how they got into it, why they do it, and what are really the main things that they would want people to know in the community about the services they provide, so that people understand it better. Lisa, I would say one of the biggest things that I get when people call me is they say, so me as the nursing home abuse and neglect attorney, is I wish I had known this stuff before my family member ever had to go into a facility. And oftentimes, particularly with nursing homes, people go from a hospital, need some rehab services, and then something happens at the facility in their subacute section of the facility, that then ends up requiring them to need long-term care or having to go back to the hospital multiple times. And so, it's a system. And if people don't understand that system, you don't know how to get through it, or what's the right questions to ask, or the language to discuss. And so I go through that with the people that I interview on the show to try to help people to get information before they're ever in that situation.
Well, you have definitely had a lot of change since the last time you were on this show. And but what hasn't changed is your passion for your field. And I think it's a wonderful thing to see. And I'm glad to have you. I'm glad you're here sharing and resharing all of your knowledge and experience. And it's time for a little Q&A. If anybody's out there ready to share their questions for you, is that something you're ready for?
Oh, always.
All righty. Well, while everybody is out there, if you're checking us live, even if you're on the replay, you can still put your comments into the comment section, and Victoria is going to get to them. But while we're waiting for you to get those questions all together and put them in the comments, I'm going to talk to you a little bit during a sponsor break, let's call it. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about legal nurse consulting and then we'll be right back to Victoria. Everyone is not completely clear about what legal nurse consultants do, so I'll make it clear today. At Wade Nurse Consultants, it's all about review, research, and roadmaps. When we review medical records, we summarize and translate that information into normal human language, easily understood by judges and juries. When we research, we complete medical literature searches regarding topics attorneys may not be familiar with, but we also locate experts that can help those attorneys support their cases, as well as attend IMEs and DMEs as nurse observers. And we also create roadmaps for your injured clients in the form of life care plans, detailing their future medical needs over their lifetimes, including estimated costs of that care. And to recap, legal nurse consultants at Wade Nurse Consultants, for us, it's all about reviews, research, and roadmaps. And now let's schedule a 10 to 15-minute medical case strategy call by clicking the calendar link in the comments above or in the description box of this YouTube channel so we can chat. And now let's get back to Victoria. And let's see, do we have any questions in the Q&A? Not yet. Not yet.
All right.
But that happens sometimes. And I have a suggestion if you're ready for it.
Sure.
I'm going to put your contact information, your new contact information, into the description box of this YouTube channel. And if anybody catches you on the replay and has a question for you, they can reach out and ask you.
I'm more than happy to answer any questions anybody would have.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. Well, I think we're going to end up winding up this episode of Should You Take That Case? And I'm going to thank you again for coming and being with us. And will you come back again?
Always, Lisa. Why not?
Sure.
I'm happy to help out. And like I said, I'm all about education and helping people to learn things new. And hopefully somebody took something new out of today. But I'm always happy to come back. So don't hesitate to reach out.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, let me remind everybody to like this YouTube channel, subscribe to this channel, Lisa Wade LNC. And if you have questions about legal nurse consulting, you can drop them in my email, lisa@wadenurseconsultants.com. But catch us next week for another episode. Monday, 5:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for another episode of Should You Take That Case? And thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching and listening to another episode of Should You Take That Case with your host, Lisa Wade, your friendly neighborhood legal nurse consultant, owner of Wade Nurse Consultants, and creator of our private LinkedIn community, the Attorney Medical Record Resource Group. That is where we get all of our stellar attorney guests. The goal of our show is to be a resource for legal professionals who pursue medical cases by sharing their experiences and insights as defense or as plaintiff attorneys. You can catch prior episodes at www.wadenurseconsultants.com/blog, on LinkedIn, and on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. Thank you for subscribing to our YouTube channel and sharing this show with others.